Hello students, welcome to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. We are discussing the part of exceptions of supply and elasticity of supply in detail. Today, if you see what are the exemptions to the law of supply, is every time supply, the price increases, supply also increases, which may not be possible, certain few cases. Backward bending supply. What is this? Labor supply. At higher wages, workers prefer leisure time. If they are having more wages, they would prefer a leisure time, and supply of labor falls despite rising wages. If market already existing higher wages, so which further the labor supply may not increase, instead they would demand for for more leisure of time, which can be possible at higher wage rates group of workers. When it comes to speculation, sellers hoard goods and accepting that future price rise, right? Sellers will be hoarding the goods expecting that future price rise, current supply falls despite rising price. The speculation we see a lot of times, right? Like even our regular onions market also, people speculate, create some sort of speculate and create an artificial scarcity so that which they can increase further rise of the price, then they supply. So they may not immediately react to this, so they try to create that artificial scarcity, which is speculative prices, which will also make. So this also could be exceptions to the law of supply. Agriculture products, its supply depends on seasons, climate, cannot be increased beyond a limits regardless of price rise. We all know, because the land supply is limited and the farmers cultivate every year similar products which they are comfortable, or which the soil suits certain crops, given a seasons, it may not react to the prices as much as, right? So that's where the supply will not change. So that's where we say that agriculture products is also can be exemptions to the law of supply. I hope you remember exemptions to the law of demand as well, which is by and large, you can, when you are reading, please try to compare these two. Now the types of elastic supply. In the last video, we have briefly discussed about the elasticities, 5 types of elasticities. That is, elasticity supply is greater than 1, that is relatively elastic. Percentage change in quantity supplied is greater than percentage change in price. It's a flat curve. You can see a flat curve in the relative elastic. In the relatively, which is elasticity of supply less than 1, this is relatively inelastic. How? What is that meaning? Percentage change in quantity supplied is less than percentage change in price. Steep curve. You will find a steep curve. I think these terms by this time you are familiar, right? Elastic, inelastic, relative, perfect. These are all being used in the demand chapter, and as I told you, it can be used for public policy analysis everywhere. So you should be clear on this. In the unit elastic, that is equals to 1, that equal percentage of changes, the curve passes through origin, because it's a simple, since it is changing as proportionate to change in that, so there is a unit elasticity. When it comes to perfectly elastic, that is a infinity. Any quantity at one price, you will see the quantity will be same at any price. So, this is a horizontal curve. In a graphical form, you will find in a horizontally. Perfectly inelastic market, which is a 0. Elasticity is equals to 0. Whereas in the perfectly elastic, we said elasticity is equals to infinity. Here, elasticity is equals to 0. Perfectly inelastic. Fixed quantity regardless of price. That is a vertical curve. Here we see any quantity at one price. Fixed quantity here regardless of price. So, that is where the vertical curve. So, you will in the all of your exceptions to the law of supply and elasticity of law of supply, this also will help if as a producer, if you are a producer or a consumer also, which will help us to understand what factors are driving for the supply, how it is motivated, and whenever if there is a change in prices, how elasticity is reacting, how you understand the different types of markets in the economy. Accordingly, you can keep your production process. That's the reason your exceptions to elasticity of supply become very important. So, as of now, we talked about the law of supply and the different types of elasticities, exemptions, how supply curve it will be looks like upward sloping, what kind of relationship exists between the price and supply. It's a proportionate relationship, whereas in the demand curve we said inverse relationships. So, when you combine supply and demand, where the supply and demand intersects, you will find the equilibrium point, right. So, now we have learned both separately the law of demand, law of supply. When you combine, you will find an equilibrium situation. What do you mean by equilibrium point? Where supply and demand intersects a point, which is the equilibrium point in the point. That means producers or consumers or suppliers or the users, at that particular point it matches both supply and demand, where the prices will be rational. So, the equilibrium situation also important, right. Though we have discussed about extension, contraction to the supply curve also, under what circumstances it goes, but it's also important to understand that there will be an equilibrium point when you combine supply and demand. Hence, as a students, when you wanted to learn the supply factors, demand factors and elasticity, even in the demand we have seen the 3 different types of this income elasticity, right. So, cross elasticity, the price elasticity. Here also you can look at similar kind of changes, so that you will be able to comprehend and understand the market. So, all these particular modules should be able to give you an idea that how overall market is functioning, how prices are determined, how demand is estimated, how supply is been understood by the market forces, and accordingly it is supply, right. So, that is the whole summary of in the part of the microeconomics. We have discussed some of the key important components for you. So, I would refer you to further read the basic textbook for more clarity and further discussion. Thank you.